Hare Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya. Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale. Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Shwapadantikam Vande Ham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sri Rupam Shagrajatam Shahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Shadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Shaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabhandhu Jagate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripashindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulam Kaite Girim Yat Kripa Tamahang Vande Shri Gurun Dinata Hare Krishna. All right. So welcome to our English Bhakti Sastri class, regular English Bhakti Sastri class. So continuing on yesterday's discussion, yesterday we have discussed about the Yoga Ruruksu and Yoga Rudha practice. So Yoga Ruruksu means the beginning stage of yoga practice, and Yoga Rudha is the perfection. Yeah, the Samadhi is the perfection of yoga. And we found again and again Srila Prabhupada mentions in his purport about the purpose of practicing yoga, yeah, which is to control our mind and senses. Yeah. So today we will be discussing text number 10 to 32, hopefully times allows, of chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, from text 10 to 27. There are two parts of discussion today. Text 10 to 27, we'll be discussing about stages in yoga practice and samadhi. So in this part, Lord Krishna will explain to Arjuna the procedure, the processes of performing this Astanga yoga. Yeah. One should not eat too much, should not eat too less, should not sleep too much, should not sleep too less. One should go to a secluded place, yeah, to a holy place. One should be alone. So we will see that. And second part of the discussion is that Krishna will be explaining to Arjuna about perfection of yoga realization, the perfection of yoga, which is actually realization of Krishna as the super soul. So that's from text 28 to 32. Okay. Yeah. So in text 10 to 27, having described the stages of Ashtanga Yoga, Krishna next explained the practice of those stages. By practicing yoga with determination, controlling the mind, and fixing the mind on the super soul, one attained the stage of perfection called Samadhi, wherein one enjoys unlimited transcendental pleasure. Now remember yesterday, we have found Srila Prabhupada clearly mentioned that a person in Krishna consciousness, even he's in the beginning stage of his practice in Krishna consciousness, can immediately attain the topmost level of the Ashtanga Yoga, which is the Samadhi. Yeah. So now we will see Krishna's explanation about the stages, the processes of this yoga practice. And tomorrow we'll find that Arjuna will reject this practice. Yeah. So text number 10. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone. Yeah, Krishna mentioned here, ekaki means He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. So this word ekaki means alone. Srila Prabhupada explained the first business of a transcendentalist is to keep the mind always on Krishna. One should always think of Krishna and not forget him even for a moment. Yeah, smartavya satatam Vishnu. Always think about Krishna. Concentration of the mind on the Supreme is called Samadhi or trance. So when we are able to concentrate our mind to Krishna, so that is the perfection of the yoga practice actually. Yeah. Samadhi. In order to concentrate the mind, one should always remain in seclusion and avoid disturbance by external objects. He should be very careful to accept favorable and reject unfavorable conditions that affects his realization, and in perfect determination he should not hanker after unnecessary material things that entangle him by feelings of possessiveness. So this is from Srila Prabhupada's purport. So first, if we want to practice the Ashtanga Yoga, we have to go to a forest where we sit alone. We sit alone and there's no disturbances. But nowadays, hardly, in this modern age, hardly we find forests. Yeah. So actually this process was practiced by many great personalities in the past, and one of them was Dhruva Maharaj. Yeah, he went to the forest and practicing this Ashtanga Yoga. Text 11 and 12. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place, yeah, Suchao Desi, and should lay kusa grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogis should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point. Yeah. So Suchao Desi is in a sanctified place. Prabhupada explains sacred place refers to a place, two places of pilgrimage. In India, the yogis, the transcendentalists, or the devotees all leave home and reside in sacred places such as Prayag, Mathura, Vrindavan, Rishikesh, and Hardwar, and in the solitude practice yoga where the sacred rivers like Yamuna and the Ganges flow. But often this is not possible, especially for Westerners. So Suchao Desi refers to a place where Krishna normally performs his pastimes. Yeah, a sacred place, place of pilgrimage. Yeah. But Prabhupada explained often this is not possible for the Westerner. Yeah. But we have to be clear actually, wherever is Krishna worshipped, yeah, whenever is Krishna is being worshipped, that place is actually not different from spiritual world actually. Yeah, a holy place, a holy place. Yeah, so a holy place, of course India is very pious land because there are so many holy places in India. But even
अरे भाई
outside
क्या
India, wherever people worship Krishna, so that place becomes holy place. So one time Srila Prabhupada mentioned, my purpose to come to your country is to bring
भाई
Vrindavan.
मेरे को इंग्लिश
Bring,
नहीं आती इसलिए
uh,
मुझे बंद करना
yeah, just remain muted for now. So that's holy place. Yeah. Wherever Krishna is being worshipped, that's holy place. Sometimes we may, regarding this verse, we may ask like, why it should be covered with deer skin. Yeah. Sometimes we also find tiger skin, like Lord Shiva. Yeah. So this is Srila Prabhupada's explanation regarding skin of a tiger and deer. Sichav they say pratistapya. He must be situated in a very sanctified place, stiram asanam atmanah. The asanam, the sitting place, should not be changed. And how should the sitting place be selected? Na ati uchitam, not too much raised nor too low. And chailajina kusotaram. Chaila means a cotton sitting place. Then deer skin. Yogis sit on either the deer skin of a tiger, sorry, yogis sit on either the skin of a tiger or the skin of a deer. Why? Because they are in a secluded place and these skins have some chemical effect. If you sit on a deer skin, then the reptiles and snakes won't disturb you. So this is the reason. Yeah, this is the reason why those who are performing tapasya in a forest, in a secluded place, need to sit on a deer skin or a tiger skin. Because Srila Prabhupada mentioned here, I don't know whether it is true or not, but it must be true. Srila Prabhupada said that I never have done this experiment personally, but it must be true. That's why many yogis in the past, they sit on a tiger or deer skin. Yeah, that protects them actually from the reptiles. Imagine when you sit on meditation and ants bite you or snakes come. So that's the purpose, because you need to, remain undisturbed in your yoga posture while meditating. Text number 13 and 14. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Yeah, here. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, yeah, celibacy, brahmacharya, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Prabhupada explained, Krishna is the ultimate goal of life, and the Vishnu Murti situated in one's heart is the object of yoga practice. To realize this Vishnu Murti within the heart, one has to observe complete abstinence from sex life. Therefore, one has to leave home and live alone in a secluded place, remaining seated as mentioned above. One cannot enjoy sex life daily at home or elsewhere and attend a so-called yoga class and thus become yogi. Children at the age of 5 are sent to the Gurukul, or the place of the spiritual master. And the master trains the young boys in a strict discipline of becoming brahmacharis. Without such practice, no one can make advancement in any yoga. One who, however, follows the rules and regulations of marriage life, having a sexual relationship only with his wife, and that also under regulation, is called a brahmachari. Okay. So here, it's not only about sitting alone in the secluded place, but we have to overcome fear also. How can a yogi, how can a person will go to a secluded place in a forest with fear? We should be fearless, should be fearless. And here, Krishna also mentioned that one should observe celibacy, yeah, brahmacharya. And Srila Prabhupada explained very nicely, very clearly, that without following brahmacharya, without practicing brahmacharya, one cannot become a yogi. So brahmacharya training can be nicely experienced only in a gurukula, in a gurukul. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, in many occasions, he is actually very much against the modern school, because the boys and girls are mixing. But in Gurukul, the boys, they are trained to follow brahmacharya. Tapasya brahmacharyena samena cha damena cha. So perform tapasya, brahmacharya is needed. brahmacharya means controlling our sexual desire. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned also a boy, when he reaches the age of 5 years, should be sent to the Gurukul. Yeah. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj also mentioned that Komarama Charet Pragyo Dharmam Bhagavatamiha. So from the early days, early age, we have to train ourselves in devotional practice as early as possible. And this is actually the responsibility of being parents, to train our children to become devotee. So of course, uh, there is an injunction given by Chanakya Pandit that from the age of 0 to 5, we have to treat our children like a king. You know, whatever he wants, whatever she wants, fulfill that. It should be fulfilled. And then from 6 to 15, so we have to train him like, like a soldier, very, very strict, very hard, make him very, very disciplined. Yeah. And then from 16 onward, so we have to make friendship with our children. So that's actually the normal procedure. Even Srila Prabhupada quoted the verse quite often. Lala, what is that? Lalana pancha varsani, dasa varsani thadaye. So lalana pancha varsani. 5 years, you can spoil your children. Means you can fulfill whatever he wants. Even Srila Prabhupada, when he was a small boy, 5 years old, so he was walking with his father, Gaur Mohande, in a market, and then Srila Prabhupada saw toy gun. Srila Prabhupada was crying for that. Gaur Mohande said, no, 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 we don't need it. And Prabhupada was crying on the ground, kicking, crying like anything. And Gaur Mohande, Srila Prabhupada's father, got one gun for Prabhupada, and still Prabhupada crying. And his father asked, why are you still crying? Prabhupada said, I want two, one for each hand. And finally, his father got that gun for Srila Prabhupada. So from 0 to 5, you should treat your children as a king, whatever he wants, give. Of course, as parents also, we have to think properly whether that's favorable for his life or not. Yeah. And then Dasa Varsani Thadaya. And then for 10 years, we have to be very, very strict with our children. And then Mitram Matram Tadat Mitra Matram Vadachare. So after that, you become friends. So celibacy. Regarding celibacy, Srila Prabhupada also mentioned that regarding brahmacharya, even a person in marriage life is also called a brahmachari when he has sex only with his wife or with her husband. And that's also under regulation. So therefore, there is a term known as Grihastha Brahmachari. Yeah. There is Naistiki Brahmachari, there is Grihastha Brahmachari. Yeah, Grihastha Brahmachari means a householder which is having sexual intercourse but under regulation. Yeah, not daily, as Srila Prabhupada mentioned here. Yeah, not daily. Yeah. Text 15. Thus, practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains to the kingdom of God or the abode of Krishna by cessation of material existence. The ultimate goal in practicing yoga is now clearly explained. Yoga practice is not meant for attaining any kind of material facility. It is to enable the cessation of all material existence. One who seeks an improvement in health or aspires after material perfection is no yogi according to Bhagavad Gita. So what is the finally, okay, finally, what is the goal of practicing yoga? Is to go back home, back to Godhead by stopping material existence, yeah, by cutting off the chain of karma. So of course, control of the mind is helping us to attain our goal. Yeah. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada mentioned here, the ultimate goal in practicing yoga is now clearly explained. And that ultimate goal of practicing yoga is to go back home, back to Godhead, to stop material existence. Okay, text 16. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, or Arjun, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much, or does not sleep enough. Regulation of diet and sleep is recommended herein for the yogis. Too much eating means eating more than is required to keep the body and soul together. There is no need for man to eat animals because there is an ample supply of grains, vegetables, fruits, and milk. Mm. So here Srila Prabhupada is hinting regarding eating too much means when we open slaughterhouse, because the human body can sustain only from grains, grains, vegetables, fruits, and milk. And even then also as devotees, as vegetarian, uh, so eating too much, normally we don't have snacks during the day as devotees normally. But it is not wrong, nothing wrong with that, as long as the snacks that we have at home is prashadam. Yeah, but normally we eat 2 or 3 times, depending on our habit. Yeah, 2 times. Sometimes devotees, many devotees taking prasadam 3 times. So only on the regular basis, on the regulated time, you know, we're not walking on the street and just taking something, grab something, like how the common people do. You know, we don't do that practice. So in eating also, we are regulated and not too much, because the purpose is that when the tongue and the belly is fulfilled, its demand is fulfilled, and then it's actually giving more pressure to the urge of the genital, because it is in a straight line, tongue, belly, and genitals. Therefore, we control our eating. Control the tongue, will automatically controlling the belly. When the belly is controlled, genital also will be controlled. Yeah, because it's on the straight line. Rupa Goswami explained. Jiwa vegam udaro upasta. Yeah, upasta vegam should be controlled. When we can control our tongue, automatically we can control our genitals. Yeah. And whatever food we eat also, that's actually will influence our consciousness. And therefore, soya, for example, yeah, soya is containing a lot of protein. Therefore, generally, as brahmachari, those who are in a brahmachari ashram, is as much as possible don't eat soya, because it's contain a lot of protein, and that protein actually giving a lot of pressure and energy to the genital, to the sexual appetite. Even as grihasta also, we can eat soya, but not often. Like paneer, soya, cheese, this kind of food, they are containing a lot of protein. And when the body gets a lot of protein, therefore, normally the meat eaters, they have, you know, big sexual appetite, big sexual desire, because too much protein. The body needs protein, but not much. Otherwise, too much protein will give big appetite for sexual desire. So one time, Govinda Dasi, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, is, she's like one of the best cook for Srila Prabhupada. So whenever she gets the chance, she used to cook for Srila Prabhupada. So she cooked for Prabhupada some preparation with paneer, and full ball, full ball, full plate was served to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada ate, finished that. So Govinda Mataji thought, wow, Srila Prabhupada loves this very much. Tomorrow I shall make again. And she made again uh, after offering to Krishna and give to his servant, Prabhupada's servant, and sell to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada just ate one spoon and that's it. And then Govinda Mataji was asking, so yesterday you ate the whole preparation, but today why only one spoon? And Prabhupada said, for a sannyas, for a sannyas, you should not eat paneer every day. Otherwise, sexual desire will come. Srila Prabhupada said. Because paneer contains a lot of protein. Paneer, cheese, soya. So we can eat those, but not often. Yeah, not on the daily basis. Yeah, because we want to control ourselves, control our senses. So control the tongue will automatically control the belly and genital. Yeah. And sleeping also like that. Yeah. Control the sleep. Yeah. Nor can one who artificially abstain from eating manufacturing his own personal process of fasting practice yoga. The Krishna conscious person observes fasting as it's recommended in the scriptures. He does not fast or eat more than is required, and he is thus competent to perform yoga practice. One who eats more than required will dream very much while sleeping. This is also another reason that, you know, it's okay to take dinner. It's okay to take dinner, but don't take heavy stuff at night. Prabhupada always recommend at night you can drink milk. That's actually enough for the body. You can drink milk and read Krishna book. Prabhupada recommends that cup of milk. But sometimes not all of us can follow this, right? So we take heavy stuffs. Therefore, when the belly is full at night, so we tend to sleep longer. Yeah? We dream too much because the explanation is that when the body is, when the stomach is full, so now the uh, the the energy is utilized just to digest this food, you know, and the body becomes too exhausted. Therefore, you may experience that when you eat too much at night and when you put your alarm at 4 o'clock in the morning, for example, you hear the alarm, you have the tendency to snooze the alarm, yeah, and you feel like so heavy, because the whole energy was, finished just for digestion. Therefore, it is a good practice, better to have your dinner before sunset. Yeah. Better to have dinner before sunset. And before sleep, you can drink milk if you have milk. Yeah, that would be best practice. And he must consequently sleep more than is required. So that's the result. One should not sleep. Nah, this is regarding sleeping here. One should not sleep more than 6 hours daily. One who sleeps more than 6 hours out of 24 is certainly influenced by the mode of ignorance. So now we find finally Srila Prabhupada explanation here, mentioning about 6 hours, not more than 6 hours. Normally we just hear, right? Devotees saying. But here it is, the exact statement of Srila Prabhupada, not more than 6 hours. Yeah, in one back home, back to magazine, back to Godhead magazine. Yeah, I was reading also about sleeping, where Srila Prabhupada mentioned 7 hours. Those who sleep more than 7 hours is considered just like swallowed by the python of Maya, by the snake of Maya. But here Srila Prabhupada mentioned 6 hours. So that's actually true. When we sleep just 6 hours, means good sleep, sound sleep for 6 hours, actually the body is fit. The body is, that's for normal healthy person. Of course, this statement may not be applicable for all For example, like baby children, they need to sleep. Yeah, baby needs to sleep up to 20 hours per day. Or when a person is sick, so he need to sleep a lot, yeah, to take rest. But for normal people, yeah, healthy normal person, 6 hours is actually really, really good. Yeah. When we sleep too much, we will become sick. When we sleep too much, we will become sick. Okay, so that's about eating and sleeping. Should be regulated. Yeah. And this is very nice verse. Yeah, about how we should regulate everything. Yeah. Yukta hara viharasya. Yukta cheta sakarmasu. Yukta swapnava bodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. How, sorry, he who is regulated in his habit of eating, yukta ahar means eating, and then vihar means sleeping. Yukta chitasa karmasu, recreation and work, karma, can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. So this habit, yeah, eating, sleeping, recreation, and work should be regulated. Srila Prabhupada explained, extravagance in the matter of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, which are demands of the body, can block advancement in the practice of yoga. So Srila Prabhupada here mentioned extravagance means too much. It doesn't mean that we are not allowed to enjoy, yeah, eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. We can, but not too much. As far as eating is concerned, it can be like regulated only when one is practiced to take and accept prasadam, sanctified food. So this is how we control our eating. Yeah, we regulate our eating by only taking prasadam. As far as sleeping is concerned, a Krishna conscious person is always alert in the discharge of his duties in Krishna consciousness, and therefore any unnecessary time spent sleeping is considered a great loss. Yeah, a great loss, the Prabhupada mentioned here. As far as work is concerned, a Krishna conscious person does not do anything which is not connected with Krishna's interest, and thus his work is always regulated and is untainted by sense gratification. So we work only to maintain body and soul together, yeah? Not to overworking too hard, yeah? Over endeavor. So this is from Srila Prabhupada's purport. Now, what about recreation? So when I was studying the Bhakti Sastri, at that time I was a brahmachari. I was studying Bhakti Sastri, and when this verse come up, so I was asking uh, my teacher, so in the classroom, so I was asking, and what about recreation? What about the grihastas? They said they have recreation, and seemingly they are enjoying sense gratification through this recreation. What about that? And then many grihasta devotees turned at me and looking me like this, oh, this brahmachari is trying to pull down our leg here. Yeah. So recreation. So one devotee was giving answer very nicely. Yes, we do have recreation, and what we do at during recreation, we take our mridanga and kartal and some prasadam and have recreation. So we never disconnected to Krishna. We always connected to Krishna. So that's our recreation. So we go to temple, we chant and dance in the front of the temple. That's also kind of recreation. There are so many people, working so hard, and then at weekend they go for recreation. They go to the nightclub, or they go to some karaoke, you know, to sing, to dance in the nightclub, to sing, to dance, to drink, to enjoy some food, to to relax, to free them from all the stressful thought while working. But we as devotees, we are experiencing recreation every day. We go to the temple, we meet devotees, we chant together, we dance together, taking prasadam together. That's all recreation. That's actually the whole world dream about, to sing and dance every day. This is a lecture from Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada says, this is called yukta. We should eat simply for keeping healthy condition. We shall sleep simply for keeping healthy condition. But if you can reduce, that's nice, but not at the risk of becoming sick. Reducing eating is very important, but not at the risk of becoming sick. Because in the beginning, because we are accustomed to eat voraciously, so don't try to eat less artificially. You eat, but try to minimize it. Therefore, there are prescription of fasting, at least 2 compulsory fastings in a month, and there are other fasting days. The more you can reduce your sleep and eating, you keep good health, especially for spiritual purpose, but not artificially. Not artificially, but when you advance naturally, you will not feel. So very nice lecture. That it is not that immediately after tonight's class, everybody becomes so austere. Don't try it artificially. But we should have an attempt to, naturally to reduce our eating and sleeping, but not at the risk of becoming sick. Srila Prabhupada in the beginning, he used to cook for his disciples. He used to cook a lot for his disciples, feed them, take more prasada. But when Srila Prabhupada give them second initiation and some of them become sannyas, Prabhupada said, now you must reduce your eating. Yeah. So one time, His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj, His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj. So he was in Mayapur. So the devotees got gur, gur from Navadvip, and brought to Mayapur. So those days when they have fish, so they used to cook puri and eat this hot puri, fresh puri with gur. That's for them. This puri and gur is like fish, like fish. And then Srila Prabhupada came to know. And then Prabhupada said, what did you eat? And Japataka Maharaj said, oh, Prabhupada, today we ate puri and gur. And Prabhupada said, how is it? Oh, so nice. Devotees are so happy. Okay, that's nice. But for sannyas, you should avoid this. You should avoid, yeah, because sannyas means you are reducing your eating. Prabhupada said. Prabhupada explained to Japataka Maharaj so nice. Puri and gur. So not artificially, we immediately try to become, austere. There is a gradual process. Therefore, in a month at least on Ekadasi we fast, and also some appearance and disappearance of the acharyas. We fast till noon, yeah, normally. And then text number 18, when the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. So the word yukta means well established in yoga. Actually, yukta means regulated. Yeah, yukta hara vihara, yukta chitta sakama. So that means regulating in eating and sleeping. Yeah. But here Srila Prabhupada gives the meaning. The word yukta is well situated in yoga. Yeah. Therefore, for people in general, especially those who are not in the renounced order of life, that means the grihastas, transcendental engagement of the senses and the mind as described above is the perfect process for transcendental achievement, which is called yukta in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Text number 19, this is also a very nice verse. Yatha dipo nivatasto ningate sopama smrita yogino yatachita sha yunjato yogam atman. As a lamb in a windless place does not waver, So the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. A truly Krishna conscious person, always absorbed in transcendence, in constant undisturbed meditation on his worshipable Lord, is as steady as a lamp in a windless place. So for those who have controlled the mind, so they never become agitated. They remain observed in the chanting of the holy names, like Haridas Thakur or Prahlad Maharaj or Ambarish Maharaj, amidst of any temptation in life, whether it is good or bad temptation. So they remain, steady, just like a lamp in a windless place is not waving, because they steady. Text 20 to 23. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty, like Ambarish Maharaj, like Prahlad Maharaj. Yeah. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. Yeah, Prabhupada explained, by practice of yoga, one becomes gradually detached from material concepts. This is the primary characteristic of the yoga principle. Okay, very clear, Srila Prabhupada mentioned. Yoga, practicing yoga means developing developing detachment to the material world. But if the so-called yoga practice, we are practicing yoga, but does not help us to become detached from this world, then that is not yoga. Yeah. Today's so-called yoga practice, which involve various sense pleasures, is contradictory. A yogi indulging in sex and intoxication is a mockery. Even those yogis who are attracted by the siddhis, okay, the perfection. There are 8 mystic perfections. We have discussed that in the previous discussions. In the process of yoga are not perfectly situated. If yogis are attracted by the products of yoga, then they cannot attain the stage of perfection as is stated in this verse. Okay, what is the byproducts of yoga? One of those is the 8 mystic perfection in yoga. Yeah. If a yogi attracted or having ambition to have this kind of mystic siddhi perfection, then actually he is actually bewildered. Uh, that's actually will give us more attachment. Imagine now if you can fly, or if you can change your form into whatever you want. So this will become big stumbling block in the, you know, attaining the ultimate goal of yoga, which is going back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, a person who is attached, a yogi, who is attached with a byproduct. Byproduct means you perform something and automatically you will get something. If you attach with that, then Prabhupada mentioned they cannot attain the stage of perfection. Similarly, in our devotional practice, Danam Janam Sundari. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that na danam, na janam, na sundari. So this Danam, and Sundarim will automatically come to our life when we perform devotional service. This is the byproduct. Okay? So the goal of performing devotional service is to develop Krishna Prema within our heart. But the byproduct, which comes automatically in the form of dhanam, money, wealth, Janam, followers, and Sundari, beautiful woman, or in the opposite way. Yeah, in the opposite way. So when you perform, yeah, when you perform bhakti, so naturally people will give you okay some donation, for example, like that, and then people will start praising you and becoming your follower. They always attend your class, for example, and then uh, at- attract the opposite sex. Things like this, sometimes happen in our life. And for example, if you get some money and you become attached with that byproduct, then actually it's hard to attain perfection. Why? Because a person, especially a preacher, when a preacher is attached with the donation, for example, like that, dana, attached with donation, he cannot become a pure preacher. Now, why? Because instead of telling the truth, sometimes truth is so painful, right? Truth is very painful sometimes. Yeah. Instead of telling some truth, because he know that that may not be so pleasant to the audience, especially those who gives him money, then he becomes loose in his preaching. Yeah, he becomes loose in his preaching and try to make some adjustment just to please the audience. But a preacher is not concerning so much whether the audience likes or doesn't like. Truth is truth. Yeah? Therefore, we find Srila Prabhupada in his lecture, he's using harsh words sometimes, like fools, rascals, this and that. That's harsh word. But that's the characteristic, one of the characteristic of a great preacher, that he's not afraid that okay, somebody will like the lecture, somebody will not like the lecture, how I should present my lecture nicely, accepted for the public. Well, that's one thing, but you should not hide the truth. You should not hide the truth. And then text 24. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation and thus control all senses on all sides by the mind. The yoga practitioner should be determined and should patiently prosecute the practice without deviation. One should be sure of success at the end and pursue this course with great perseverance, not becoming discouraged if there is any delay in the attainment of success. Yeah. Sometimes we are too impatient, I would say, too impatient that because of that impatient nature, when the result seemingly not coming very quickly, and we give up our practice. Therefore, Rupa Goswami explained Utsahan Nischaya Dharya. Dharya means patient. Prabhupada sometimes he give the example of a newly married couple. Yeah, a newly married couple, although they desire to have a kid immediately, so they have to wait. They have to be patient. There is process and time. You have to wait. And in the verse, Krishna explained about a person, those who are practicing this yogic process should at all uh, abandoning the material desires. When we still have material desires, then there is no possibility of going back home, back to Godhead. A little attachment, a little material desire will keep us remain here in the material world. There is nice prayer by Prahlad Maharaj in the Srimad Bhagavatam 7th canto, when Lord Nrsimhadev, he was very much pleased by Prahlad Maharaj's devotion. So Prahlad Maharaj was asked by Nrsingadev, now, my dear Prahlad, I'm very pleased by your devotion. Please ask any boon that you want. I shall grant it. Anything you ask. You want greater kingdom? You want wealth? You want this, that? Please ask. And Prahlad Maharaj said, Yadi dasyasi me kamam varam tam varada rishabha kamanam hridi asam roham bhavatastu brine varam. My dear Lord Nrsingadev, kamanam hridi asam roham. I have only one desire, and that desire is that may there is no material desire in my heart. That's it. May there is no material desire. Prahlad Maharaj said, I have one desire, and that desire is that may there is no material desire in my heart. Kamanam hridi asam roham bhavatastu brine varam. Yeah. For example, if now Krishna appear in the front of me and ask me, please ask any boon, I shall grant. Maybe I will ask big house, I will ask car, this and that. But Prahlad Maharaj said that I just want that I don't have material desires. Because he understands that a little attachment, a little material desire will keep us remain here, remain bound in the material world. Yeah. This is regarding determination. A sparrow laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, but the big ocean carried away the eggs on its wing. The sparrow became very upset and asked the ocean to return her eggs. The ocean did not even consider her appeal. So the sparrow decided to dry up the ocean. She began to pick out the water in her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. The news of her activity spread, and at last Garuda, the gigantic bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard it. He became compassionate toward his small sister bird, and so he came to see the sparrow. Garuda was very pleased by the determination of the small sparrow, and he promised to help. Thus, Garuda at once asked the ocean to return her eggs, lest he himself take up the work of the sparrow. The ocean was frightened at this and returned the eggs. Thus, the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda. So, determination. Yeah. Drida Vrata, determination is very important aspect while performing devotional service. Sometimes Krishna put some tests in our life while performing our devotional service. But we have to be always remain in great determination performing devotional service. Yeah, never give up, never give up. Just like we find the story of Dhruva Maharaj. Yeah, Dhruva Maharaj, when he was insulted by Suruchi, uh, his mother, his stepmother. So this Dhruva, he's just a 5-year-old boy, and he became so upset. And Suniti, his mother, told him that you go to the forest and please Lord Vishnu perform tapasya and please Lord Vishnu. In that way, you will achieve whatever you desire. And then on the way, when he went to the forest, he met Nard Muni. And Nard Muni said, "Oh, come on, it just, don't take that word seriously of your stepmother. Don't take it seriously. Go home now. You are small. You are 5 years old. You're just a kid. You just need to play and be happy. That's it. You don't have to perform austerity. You can do austerity when you grow up." But Dhruva Maharaj said, "No, I want to please Lord Vishnu. I must go to the forest now." So the explanation is that Narad Muni, in the beginning, he tried to see, he just testing Dhruva Maharaj, how much determination he has. Yeah. So Dhruva Maharaj said, "No, I must go now. I will not return before Lord Vishnu fulfills what I want." I want a greater kingdom even than Lord Brahma's kingdom. So yeah, determination. When there is determination, success is actually guaranteed. Success is guaranteed when there is determination in devotional service, because Krishna is seeing that determination. Text number 25. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. By proper conviction and intelligence, one should gradually cease sense activities. This is called pratyahara. Okay, so this Ashtanga yoga practice from yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, and then pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and ultimately samadhi. So pratyahara means to cease the activities of the senses in the sense of ceasing from material activities. This is pratyahara. In other words, although one is involved with matter, as long as the material body exists, one should not think about sense gratification. One should think of no pleasure aside from the pleasure of the Supreme Self. This state is easily attained by directly practicing Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Again, Srila Prabhupada is comparing Krishna consciousness practice to the Ashtanga Yoga practice. Yeah. 26. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. The nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady, right? That's true. So now we are thinking of, of one thing, and in the next second, the mind will jump uh, to another thought. But a self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind and therefore the senses as well is called Goswami or Swami, and one who is controlled by the mind is called Godas or the servant of the senses. Similar statement given by Srila Prabhupada in the Nectar of Instruction regarding Goswami and Godas. A Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happiness, the senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesh, or the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yoga practice. Yeah, controlling the senses. Pratyahara. Yeah, senses should be controlled. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned here, a Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. So what is the standard of sense happiness? It just brings miseries. Sense gratification simply gives birth to miseries. Yeah. Dukkha yoni. What is that verse? Dukkha yonaya evate atyantavanta kantya nate suramate buddha. Krishna mentioned that. So sense gratification simply gives birth to suffering. Yeah? And it has adi and anta, beginning and end. It's not eternal. Natesu ramate buddha, and those who are intelligent, they will not derive any pleasure from sense gratification. Yeah. This is Prabhupada's lecture. So unless one is not master of the senses, his accepting this title of Swami and Goswami is cheating. One must be master of the senses. That is defined by Rupa Goswami. Goswami, Rupa Goswami. They were ministers. When they were ministers, they were not Goswami. But when they become disciples of Lord Chaitanya, Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami, and was trained by him, they became Goswami. So nowadays, there are, especially in India, yeah, there are so many Swamis, Goswamis. But the real definition of Goswami is that one who can control his senses. As long as one cannot control his senses, so he cannot become a Goswami. Just like His Grace Atma Tattva Prabhu, one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples. Yeah. So he was a Mayavadi before he joined ISKCON. He was a Mayavadi, and his name was uh, I think Atmananda. Yeah, Atmananda Swami, Swami Atmananda. Yeah, his name was Swami Atmananda. Swami Atmananda. And then at the time of initiation, so Srila Prabhupada was receiving the list of the devotees' name who will take initiation. So there is this Bhakta, that Bhakta, and finally he found the name Bhakta Atmananda Swami. And then he was asking Gopal Krishna Maharaj Prabhupada, so who is this Bhakta Atmananda Swami? He's a Bhakta, but he's Swami? Yes, Prabhupada, that is, well, because he's a Mayavadi sannyasi, so he got the title Swami. But now he's joining ISKCON and ready for initiation. And Prabhupada said, okay. Yeah, so Swami in Indonesia, yeah, in my country, in our language, a husband is called Swami. A husband is called Swami. So they don't understand actually. This is very deep. Swami means one who can control the senses. So a husband means one who control, not only control, not only taking charge of the family, but the prime duty is that to control the senses. Yeah, Swami. And text 27 of this discussion, the last verse of this discussion. Finally, Krishna explained, the yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all the reactions to past deeds. Yeah, this is from Surrender unto me. Happiness comes to a yogi even before he attains perfection. Freedom from passion and ignorance situates the yogi in a pleasurable mode of goodness. Gradually, he realizes his qualitative identity with Brahman and becomes satisfied. A devotee's realization, however, goes beyond the yogi's. The devotee remains unsatisfied even after achieving his own happiness. His interest is pleasing Krishna, which award him far greater bliss. So up to this point, we have discussed how Krishna is explaining to Arjun the process of this Ashtanga Yoga practice. It's so difficult. Yeah. If we observe, it's so difficult. And Krishna is explaining different things. And here in the text number 27, he's explaining about, what was that? About happiness, yeah, deriving happiness, transcendental happiness. And here Burijan Prabhu is explaining nicely. Actually, in practice, in devotional practice, there are two things. One is called sadhana and one is called sadhya. Sadhana means when we still as practitioner, and sadhya is the perfection. But here it is explained that even a person who's not yet attaining perfection in his devotional practice, so he can derive happiness, transcendental happiness. because the process itself is actually very much pleasing. Yeah. Susukam kartum avyaya, very much pleasing. So in devotional practice, in bhakti, the process and goal, the sadhana and the sadhya, both gives pleasure to the devotees. Yeah. But in the Ashtanga yoga practice, so the process is so painful and they may derive happiness when they attain the goal, but the process is so painful. But in devotional practice, the process is so joyfully performed, and the goal is, when you attain the perfection, the goal, even much more happiness we will derive. So that's the uh, explanation about bhakti is, much more higher and easier actually compared to the Ashtanga yoga practice. And now, briefly, we just go on this next part of discussion from text 28 to 32. Perfection of yoga. Krishna will explain to Arjuna perfection of yoga, realization of Krishna as super soul. Yeah. So after describing the yoga practice of fixing the mind on the self, Krishna explains the realization of the yogi. A Krishna conscious yogi is the perfect seer because he sees Krishna situated in everyone's heart as super soul. He sees Krishna everywhere and everything in Krishna. Thus, he sees all living entities equally. So this is slightly going back to the first part in the fifth chapter, not in the first part of the fifth chapter. In the fifth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, we have discussed about the vision of the uh, Paramatma yogi, yeah, Paramatma yogi, one who can see the Paramatma in every living entity's heart. Text number 28, thus the self-controlled yogi constantly engaged in yoga practice becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental living service to the Lord. Self-realization means knowing one's constitutional position, relationship with the Supreme. The individual soul is part and parcel of the Supreme, and his position is to render transcendental service to the Lord. So this is the meaning of self-realization. When we realize that Nityara Krishna Das, we are the eternal servant of Krishna. So when we realize it, realize means not simply knowing, but also act according to that understanding. When we realize that, then that is called the perfected stage of self-realization. The previous verse described the yogi who attains self-realization. This is from Surrender unto me, who realized that he's not his body, but a soul qualitatively one with Brahman. This verse describes going beyond that realization to realization of the super soul. Thus, the yogi, one who is in touch with the Supreme Self, experiences sukhena, transcendental happiness, because of Brahma samsparsa, being in contact, being in constant touch with the Supreme. This liberation is achieved by practicing yoga with a controlled mind and thereby contacting the super soul. Thus, a yogi can gradually progress from an impersonal realization to a personal relationship. That means, however, that the super soul, he is realizing, that the super soul he is realizing will also gradually turn into Bhagavan. Okay, this is a nice statement here, that there are two levels of self-realization explained, in this book. So the first one is that one who simply realizes that he's not the body, and second one is one who realizes about that his sambandha with Krishna, realizing that there is Supreme Brahman, Supreme Soul. super soul, Paramatma. And here it is described that there is a progressive stage of realization from Brahman and then Paramatma and then Bhagavan feature. So those who are sincere, although in the beginning they were Mayavadi, those who are sincere of the seeker of the absolute truth, they will ultimately reach the level of Bhagavan understanding. Yeah. Therefore, that verse, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanavanam Prapadyante, that verse is talking about a sincere Mayavadi, a sincere impersonalist, who are after millions of lifetimes, and finally they will realize Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. Yeah. But those who are staunch Mayavadi means that they don't want to go beyond their understanding that I'm God, you are God, everything is God, everyone is God. That is called staunch Mayavadi. But sincere Mayavadi, they will keep advancing, but very slowly from the level of Brahman understanding to Paramatma, and finally Bhagavan understanding, yeah. Bhagavan realization. 29. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, same Supreme Lord, everywhere. Yeah. The yogi sees equally. Yeah. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. We have talked about this. Text 30. Yomam Pashyati Sarvatra Sarvam Chamayi Pashyati Tashyaham Na Pranashyami Shachamena Pranashyami. Very beautiful verse. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me. Yeah. Yomam Pashyati Sarvatra sees, Krishna everywhere. Right? And then Sarvam Chamayi Pashyati and sees everything in Krishna. Krishna says, I'm never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. That means that person who has the vision of Paramatma is everywhere and residing everywhere. He is always connected to Krishna because he can see Krishna all the time. Yeah, he never separated from Krishna. A person in Krishna consciousness certainly sees Lord Krishna everywhere and he sees everything in Krishna. Such a person may appear to see all separate manifestations of the material nature, but in each and every instance, he is conscious of Krishna, knowing that everything is manifestation of Krishna's energy. Nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything. This is the basic principles of Krishna consciousness. So later in chapter 7, this thing will be more elaborately described. Yeah. So a person may see something, but he sees that thing as the expansion of Krishna's energy. It starts actually from the 7th chapter from Rasoham Apsu Kaunteya. Yeah. I am taste of water, Krishna says. So when a person tasting water, a Paramatma yogi will think, oh, it's Krishna. Yeah. Rasoham Apsu Kaunteya. Punya Gandha Prithiviyam Cha. Krishna says, I am the smell of earth. Punya Gandha Prithiviyam Cha. Tejas, what is it? Tejas. But the the meaning is that Krishna is the Buddhi Matam Chaham. Krishna is the intellectual of the intelligent person. And anyway, you will you'll find this description in the 7th chapter. Yeah. So the Paramatma yogi will see that Krishna is everywhere, and nothing is actually separated from Krishna, because everything is Mata Parataram Nanyat Kinchidasti Dananjaya Mayi Sarvam Idam Protam Sutre Manigana Eva is held by Krishna's energy, just like pearl strung by a thread. So nothing can be separated from Krishna. That also will be explained in the 7th chapter. Text number 31. Such a yogi who engages in a worshipful service of the Super Soul, knowing that I and the super soul within all creatures are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. Vishnu is one, yet he is certainly all pervading by his inconceivable potency. In spite of his one form, he is present everywhere as the sun appears in many places at once. So the Paramatma, I think that already discussed. Yeah. It is not that the Paramatma is being cut now into many pieces. No, but he is expanding his energy. And then last verse for today's discussion. He is a perfect yogi who, and finally we know here, yeah, perfection of yogi is that realizing Krishna as Paramatma. By comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. Yeah. One who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. He is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. The cause of the distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with God. Clearly, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that why we are suffering here because we are forgetting our eternal relationship with Krishna. We are trying to be artificially independent from Krishna. And the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all activities of the human beings, proprietors of all lands and planets, and the sincerest friends of all living entities. So this is Srila Prabhupada hinting on the last verse of the fifth chapter, yeah, of Charan Yagya Chapters. But the point is that everybody is seeking for happiness. Everybody, even the small insect also seeking for happiness. Yeah. But the jiva becomes artificially suffering when he's trying to forget about Krishna, forgetting his eternal relationship with Krishna. Yeah. That's how the journey of our suffering starts. But when we resume our original position as the servant of the Lord, then we become fully happy. So just to conclude our today's discussion, in the first part, we have discussed how Krishna is explaining the procedure, the processes of the Astanga Yoga to Arjuna, which is seemingly very, very difficult, and it is very difficult. And tomorrow we will see Arjuna will reject these processes. Yeah. And then in the second part, we discuss about the perfection of the yoga process, which is Paramatma realization, realizing Krishna as the Paramatma. And thus, the yogi who attain the perfection will be always entranced with the transcendental happiness, always absorbed in transcendental happiness due to his connection with Krishna. Okay, thank you very much. Time is over. Were there any questions or comments? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, please, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, in the verse 10, in the Prabhupada purport, it is likes that it is written that because the impersonal Brahmana is the spiritual ray of Krishna, and the impersonalist and the meditator are also indirectly Krishna conscious. Uh, here is clear that the impersonal Brahman is a ray of Krishna, and they are also worshipped indirectly to the Krishna. But whether there's Brahmavadi or Nirvishesvadi, in the same perspective, they see the Brahman in that same perspective as Prabhupada described here.
Okay, thank you. Nice question. Because time is up, those who want to leave, you are allowed. Those who want to stay, also no problem. Yeah, just responding on that question, that yes, Brahman is the Krishna's effulgence. Yeah. So those who are worshipping Brahma Jyoti, Krishna's effulgence, is actually indirectly worshipping Krishna. Indirectly worshipping Krishna. It's just the It's just a matter of lacking of understanding. That's it. Just like we are pouring water to the leaf. Yeah. So we don't understand that actually by pouring water to the root is actually enough to energize the leaf. You don't have to water the leaf separately. So they are indirectly worshipping Krishna. Even the demigod worshippers, they are also considered to be indirectly worshipping Krishna, because the demigods, they are actually the hands of the Lord in the managerial affair of this universe. So the demigod worshippers also indirectly worshipping Krishna. They want to worship God, but they don't know who God is. So they worship the demigods. So the Mayavadis or the Brahmawadis also like that. Hmm. They want to worship the absolute truth, but because of lacking of understanding, so they worship Brahman. So indirectly they are worshiping Krishna. As I mentioned, that if they are sincere, so they will attain the highest perfection in realization, which is Bhagavan realization. And there are so many examples in the scripture, like Sukadev Goswami or the Chaturkumara. It is described that in the beginning they were Brahmavadi. Yeah? They were Brahmavadi, they are impersonalists. But due to their sincerity, so they become devotee. So yes, those who are worshipping Brahman is actually indirectly worshipping Krishna. But the staunch Mayavadi, as I mentioned, the staunch Mayavadi who think himself to be God cannot be advanced up to the Bhagavan realization. Is that clear, Prabhu?
Yes, yes, Prabhupada. That, the Brahmavadi, actually, their perspective is different, as Prabhupada described the difference. Their realization and their perspective of see Brahman is different as described in here in the Prabhupada.
Mhm. Um, no, Brahmavadi is one who's Brahman realized, and there are even impersonalists also. There are different types of impersonalists. So the Mayavadi and Brahmavadi is actually different. Yeah, Brahmavadi who is realizing uh, himself to be the spirit soul, which is part and parcel of Krishna, but they still not reaching the topmost realization. But Mayavadi is thinking that everything is illusion. Yeah, they are impersonalists. Everything is illusion. Maya, everything. Illusion. Maya means illusion. Everything is illusion. Yeah. But Brahmavadi is one who worship Brahman and understand clearly that there is something beyond this matter, and that is spirit. And that is spirit. And the spirit means spiritual. There is another dimension of the world. Yeah. So that's Srila Prabhupada's understanding. All right. Thank you very much for attending the class tonight. So tomorrow will be our final session. Krishna Nitwan, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah,